me start with a question. Who remembers a man named George Washington? Well, sure, you all know who George was. You probably know the tale of him chopping down a cherry tree, the great revolutionary general, and the first president of the United States of America under our national Constitution. Now let me ask you if you know a man named Millard Fillmore. Now the history nerds will know that he was the 13th president of the United States. Why is Fillmore not known as well as Washington? Well, what good things did Fillmore do that was so good that he's remembered for them? The only worthy thing I could find was that he planted the cornerstone for the Washington Monument in Washington, D.C. That's it. So when comparing Washington and Fillmore, we remember Washington better because of his good works throughout his entire life. We especially remember all the wonderful things he did for other people. The debate that started with the adulterous woman at the beginning of this chapter is concluding. The debate was a way of Semitic people in Jesus' day to find out what each one knew. I know the scripture in the church like to say that the religious leaders were trying to trap Jesus. The truth is they wanted to know where he stood on some issues. And yes, if Jesus was not on their side, they might move to get rid of him. Also, Jesus was from the Galilee, and the Jews of Judea who controlled the temple and Jewish life did not think highly of Galileans and Samaritans. They were not considered Jews by heritage, but rather a group of Assyrians who settled in when they conquered the land. They adopted Judaism, and they followed a lot of traditions of the land. The Samaritans followed the Torah, that's the first 5 books of the Bible. Still, they rejected the prophets and the writings because of how these books addressed the Assyrians. It's obvious why they did this. The Samaritans physically looked like Assyrians, and it scared the Judeans. Since the Assyrians were known as the worst of the biblical nations, they were not remembered for their good works. I don't even know if they had any. Instead, the Judeans wanted to forget them. There were some awful things that the Assyrians did to the people that they conquered. Outside of the church and synagogue, you don't hear much about them. Oh yes, this includes Babylonians and Persians to some degree also. Let us turn a moment to a great man who is still known today as a great man. What is attractive about this man is that 2,000 years after his birth, we celebrate his birth. He is known worldwide. The celebration of his birth is practically a worldwide holiday. Now you know who I'm referring to. It's Jesus of Nazareth. He said and did some of the most incredible things that made him better than good. He became great. Jesus was so good. How good was he? The Quran, which is the Muslim holy book, and Josephus' writing, an historian of the day, tell the tale of the Jewish prophet who was thought to be the Messiah and rose from the grave 3 days later. Even those who do not worship him know about him. And that is why Jesus is known throughout the world. A vital idea from this passage is that one is remembered for their good works and deeds long after they lived. People are immortalized by people living who remember them. To keep a person alive in you is to remember the good times and good things they did. Also, it is essential to learn from their goodness. This would also reflect that person's life into you, thus grafting them into you. In Jesus' day, a person could be called a son of David, and this meant that they acted like David and they were respected like David. To be a son or a daughter of David is a compliment above all others. Jesus was called a son of David in the gospel. Are you ready to go out into the world and do things? Another small secret I must tell you about the kingdom of heaven is that Jesus will remember you for every good thing you do. All of us cannot be remembered by the entire world. However, you will be remembered if you do good things for your family and your community. Jesus will remember you when you come to your judgment day after this life. He will be there to tell the Lord of your good works. All we need to follow the ways and actions of the most extraordinary man who ever lived on earth is Jesus Christ for our entry into heaven. God bless you for listening to this message, and as always, Shalom.